It was a cold December day in Brussels in 2019, but a powerful new warmth was spreading through the halls of the European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen, the newly appointed president, stood before the world and unveiled a plan of breathtaking ambition. It was not merely another policy paper or a set of modest targets. This was the European Green Deal, a promise to fundamentally reshape an entire continent. She described it as Europe's man-on-the-moon moment, a declaration that set the stage for a journey into an unknown, yet hopeful future. It was a vision born not of fear, but of profound opportunity and a deep sense of responsibility for the planet we all share. The air was thick with anticipation. For years, scientists had warned of the escalating climate crisis, their calls growing more urgent with each passing season of record-breaking heat, devastating floods, and raging wildfires. The world needed a leader, a collective force to turn the tide. Ursula von der Leyen stepped into that role, not as a lone figure, but as the representative of nearly 450 million people. She proposed a complete overhaul of Europe's economy and society, a roadmap to make it the first climate-neutral continent in the world. This was more than just an environmental strategy. It was a new social contract, a commitment to build a healthier, more prosperous and sustainable home for future generations. This was not a simple task. The European Union is a complex tapestry of 27 nations, each with its own history, economy and political sensitivities. Some nations were industrial powerhouses, others were agrarian heartlands. Some were already pioneers in green technology, while others remained heavily reliant on coal and other fossil fuels that had powered their communities for generations. To unite them behind such a singular, transformative vision required more than just political skill. It required a narrative of shared destiny. The Green Deal was framed not as a burden to be borne, but as a collective project that would unleash innovation, create new jobs, and secure Europe's place in the 21st century. The launch of the Green Deal sent a clear message to the world. Europe was ready to lead. At a time when global cooperation on climate change seemed to be faltering, the EU was doubling down on its commitments. It was a bold statement of intent, a challenge to other major economies to match its ambition. Ursula von der Leyen's speech was not just a political announcement, it was a call to action. It was an invitation to citizens, businesses, scientists, and activists to join in the monumental effort of building a cleaner, greener world. The journey would be long and difficult, but on that day in December, the first decisive step had been taken. The central pillar of the European Green Deal, its unwavering North Star, is the legally binding commitment to achieve climate neutrality by the year 2050. This is not a vague aspiration. It is a concrete target enshrined in the European climate law. It means that by the middle of this century, the European Union will produce no more greenhouse gas emissions than it can absorb from the atmosphere through natural sinks like forests or technological solutions. This goal aligns Europe with the most ambitious objective of the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, a critical threshold to avoid the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. Why is this so important? The science is unequivocal. The European Environment Agency's 2024 climate risk assessment identified 36 severe climate risks facing the continent, from life-threatening heat waves and prolonged droughts to devastating coastal flooding and the collapse of ecosystems. Life-threatening heat waves, prolonged droughts, devastating coastal flooding, the collapse of ecosystems. These are not distant threats, they are already unfolding. Farmers are seeing their harvests fail, communities are being displaced by rising sea levels, and our infrastructure is buckling under the strain of extreme weather. Achieving climate neutrality is not just an environmental imperative, it is a fundamental necessity for our health, our security, and our economic stability. It is about preserving the very foundations of our way of life. To ensure this long-term goal remained on track, an interim target was set: a 55% reduction in net greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. This ambitious milestone, known as the Fit for 55 package, translates the 2050 vision into concrete legislative action. It provides a clear and measurable pathway, forcing every sector of the economy to start making immediate and significant changes. This intermediate step prevents procrastination and ensures that the burden of action is not simply passed on to the next generation. It makes the journey manageable, turning a distant destination into a series of achievable steps. The target of climate neutrality by 2050 acts as a powerful catalyst for innovation and investment. It signals to industries, investors, and scientists that the future is green. This clarity encourages long-term planning and directs capital away from polluting fossil fuels and towards clean technologies like renewable energy, electric vehicles, and sustainable materials. Renewable energy, electric vehicles, sustainable materials. By setting such a clear and legally binding goal, Ursula von der Leyen and the EU have created a predictable and stable environment for the green transition to flourish. It is a beacon of certainty in a world of turmoil, guiding Europe towards a safer and more sustainable future. The European Green Deal is not about tinkering at the edges. It is a plan for a deep and systemic transformation across every part of the economy. The energy sector, responsible for over 75% of the EU's greenhouse gas emissions, is at the heart of this change. The new rules prioritize a massive scale-up of renewable energy sources, like wind and solar power, while simultaneously phasing out coal and reducing dependence on other fossil fuels. Policies like the revised Renewable Energy Directive and the Energy Efficiency Directive are designed to accelerate this shift, encouraging investment in clean power generation, modernizing the electricity grid, and promoting measures that help citizens and businesses consume less energy in the first place. Transportation, another major source of emissions, is also undergoing a radical overhaul. The plan sets ambitious targets to reduce pollution from cars, vans, planes, and ships. A key policy is the effective ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2035, a move designed to accelerate the switch to electric vehicles. To support this, the EU is mandating the rollout of millions of public charging points across the continent, ensuring that drivers can travel seamlessly from Lisbon to Helsinki in their zero-emission cars. Similar efforts are underway to promote sustainable fuels for aviation and shipping, tackling some of the hardest-to-abate sectors of the transport industry. Agriculture, a sector deeply intertwined with Europe's culture and landscape, is being guided towards more sustainable practices through the farm-to-fork strategy. This initiative aims to reduce the use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, promote organic farming, improve animal welfare, and shorten food supply chains. The goal is to create a food system that is not only healthier for consumers but also kinder to the environment, reducing emissions, protecting biodiversity, and preserving the precious resources of soil and water. While this has proven to be one of the most contentious areas of the Green Deal, the vision remains to build a resilient and fair food system for the future. Industry, the engine of Europe's economy, is being reshaped by the principles of the circular economy. The traditional take-make-waste model is being replaced by one where resources are used for as long as possible, then recovered and regenerated at the end of their life. New rules are promoting product durability, repairability, and recyclability. Furthermore, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, ensures that European businesses making green investments are not undercut by cheaper, high-carbon imports from elsewhere. This clever mechanism levels the playing field, preventing carbon leakage and encouraging global partners to raise their own climate ambitions. A core principle woven into the very fabric of the European Green Deal is the commitment to a just transition. Ursula von der Leyen understood from the outset that the shift to a climate-neutral economy could not succeed if it left people and communities behind. The transition away from fossil fuels, while essential for the planet, poses a direct threat to the livelihoods of workers and the economic stability of regions historically dependent on coal mining, peat harvesting, or carbon-intensive industries. Acknowledging this challenge head-on was crucial for building the political and social consensus needed for such a profound transformation. To translate this principle into practice, the Just Transition Fund, or JTF, was established. With an initial budget of €17.5 billion, this fund is specifically designed to cushion the socio-economic impact on the most affected regions. It is not a simple handout, it is a tool for proactive investment in the future. The money supports projects that create new, sustainable jobs in green industries, helping to diversify local economies. It also funds the reskilling and upskilling of workers, providing them with the training needed to thrive in the emerging green economy, whether in renewable energy installation, building retrofitting, or circular economy services. The implementation of the Just Transition Fund is a collaborative process. Each member state identifies the territories most in need and, in partnership with local authorities, businesses, and social partners, develops a detailed territorial Just Transition Plan. These plans outline a clear pathway for economic diversification and workforce adaptation. For example, in a former coal mining region in Poland or Germany, JTF funding might be used to redevelop old industrial sites into hubs for clean technology manufacturing, or to invest in sustainable tourism projects that leverage the region's natural heritage. The focus is on creating new opportunities, not just compensating for losses. This commitment to social fairness is what makes the Green Deal more than just an environmental policy. It is a forward-looking social pact that recognizes that climate action and social justice must go hand in hand. By ensuring that the benefits of the green transition are shared widely and that its costs do not fall disproportionately on the most vulnerable, Ursula von der Leyen has sought to build a broad base of support for the changes ahead. The promise is clear. Europe will move towards a sustainable future together, ensuring that every citizen and every region has a place in the new green economy. From its inception, I was adamant that the European Green Deal was not an environmental policy that would hinder the economy, but rather Europe's new growth strategy. This reframing was a stroke of political genius, shifting the narrative from one of cost and sacrifice to one of opportunity and innovation. The vision was to decouple economic growth from resource use, proving that a thriving economy and a healthy planet are not mutually exclusive, but are in fact deeply interconnected. The goal was to make Europe a global leader in the rapidly expanding markets for green technologies and sustainable products. This new growth model is built on massive investment in the industries of the future. The Green Deal acts as a powerful magnet for capital, directing public and private funds towards renewable energy, energy efficiency, clean mobility, and the circular economy. It sends a clear long-term signal to the market. Sustainability is the new competitive advantage. This has spurred a wave of innovation, with European companies developing cutting-edge technologies in areas like green hydrogen, advanced battery storage, and sustainable building materials. The aim is to create a virtuous cycle where climate action drives job creation, enhances industrial competitiveness, and boosts economic resilience. The strategy also includes smart policies to protect European businesses as they invest in going green. The Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, is a prime example. This policy requires importers of certain goods, like steel and cement, to pay a price for the carbon emissions embedded in their products, equivalent to what EU producers pay under the emissions trading system. This prevents so-called carbon leakage, where companies might move production to countries with weaker environmental laws. More importantly, it ensures a level playing field, rewarding European companies for their climate efforts and encouraging industries around the world to decarbonize their own production processes. Ultimately, the Green Deal positions Europe to capture the economic benefits of the global green transition. By moving first and setting high standards, the EU aims to become the world's primary supplier of sustainable solutions. This strategy is not just about reducing emissions at home, it's about exporting green technologies, services, and regulatory models abroad. As of early 2025, This vision is showing promise, with the European private sector having reduced its aggregate emissions by 28% since 2019. My great insight was to present climate leadership not as a burden, but as the smartest economic path forward for a modern, competitive, and prosperous Europe. Leading 27 diverse member states towards a single radical goal was perhaps Ursula von der Leyen's greatest challenge. The European Union is, a mosaic of different economic realities and political priorities. For nations like Poland and the Czech Republic, whose economies and workforces had been built on a foundation of coal for generations, the prospect of a rapid fossil fuel phase-out was deeply unsettling. Gaining their support required more than just impassioned speeches. It demanded empathy, careful negotiation, and tangible financial commitments. This is where the art of diplomacy really came to the forefront of the Green Deal's implementation. Von der Leyen and her team embarked on a marathon of dialogue and persuasion. They traveled to national capitals, listened to the concerns of prime ministers, business leaders, and trade unions, and worked to build trust. The key to unlocking consensus was the principle of solidarity, embodied by the Just Transition Fund. By specifically targeting financial support to the regions that faced the biggest hurdles, she demonstrated that the EU would not abandon them. This assurance that the costs of the transition would be shared was instrumental in bringing reluctant governments like Poland's on board, securing the unanimous approval needed to move forward. The process of building consensus extended beyond national governments. It involved engaging with a vast spectrum of stakeholders. Ursula von der Leyen held town hall meetings with citizens, met with youth climate activists like Greta Thunberg to understand their urgency, and convened roundtables with CEOs from Europe's largest corporations to secure their buy-in. She understood that for the Green Deal to be successful, it had to be a shared project. It required the innovative power of the private sector, the passion of civil society, and the support of the public. This inclusive approach helped to build a broad coalition for change, even among those who initially held deep reservations. This tireless effort to forge unity was guided by a powerful belief in a common European destiny. In a 2023 speech, von der Leyen captured this spirit perfectly, stating, "Europe is not built in comfort. It is built in crisis, in courage, and in the belief that together we can achieve what no nation can achieve alone." This sentiment was the philosophical bedrock of her leadership. She constantly reminded her fellow leaders that the climate crisis was a shared threat that transcended national borders, and that only through collective action could Europe hope to overcome it and emerge stronger, more united, and more resilient than before. Just months after the European Green Deal was launched, the world was plunged into an unprecedented crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. The immediate focus shifted to public health and staving off economic collapse. Many feared that the ambitious climate agenda would be sidelined, dismissed as a luxury the continent could no longer afford. However, Ursula von der Leyen displayed remarkable resilience and strategic foresight. Instead of abandoning the Green Deal, she saw an opportunity to integrate it into the very heart of Europe's recovery plan, ensuring that the path out of the crisis would be a green one. She championed the creation of the Next Generation EU Recovery Fund, a historic €750 billion package to rebuild the continent's economy. Crucially, she fought to ensure that a significant portion of this funding, over 37%, was legally earmarked for investments that directly supported the Green Deal's objectives. This meant that money flowing to member states for economic stimulus had to be spent on projects like renovating buildings for energy efficiency, building renewable energy infrastructure, and investing in clean public transport. In doing so, she masterfully linked the short-term need for economic recovery with the long-term goal of climate neutrality, effectively greening the response to the pandemic. The path was not always smooth. As the Green Deal's regulations began to take shape, they faced significant pushback. In 2023 and 2024, farmers across Europe took to the streets in widespread protests. They felt unfairly burdened by new environmental rules, rising costs, and competition from imports. These protests created intense political pressure, forcing a difficult balancing act. In response, some policies were adjusted. A proposed regulation to halve pesticide use was withdrawn, and the landmark nature restoration law was watered down to include an emergency brake for socio-economic reasons, demonstrating the real-world complexities of such a large-scale transition. Despite these setbacks and the constant need to navigate competing interests, von der Leyen's commitment to the core vision of the Green Deal never wavered. She engaged in dialogue with farming communities, acknowledging their vital role and seeking pragmatic solutions. Her leadership demonstrated an ability to be flexible without sacrificing the fundamental goals. She understood that steering a supertanker like the European economy requires constant adjustments to the course. Her ability to keep the climate agenda alive and central through a global pandemic and widespread social unrest stands as a testament to her political tenacity and unwavering belief in the project. For all its ambition and initial success, the journey of the European Green Deal is fraught with immense challenges and hard truths. As of early 2025, the reality of implementing over 150 complex policy initiatives is proving to be a monumental task for member states. A study by the Stockholm Environment Institute highlighted significant hurdles, particularly for smaller nations like Estonia. National authorities are struggling with the sheer volume and pace of new legislation, leading to administrative bottlenecks and shortages of financial and human resources. The dream of a seamless transition is bumping up against the practical realities of governance. The data reveals a mixed picture. On the one hand, the progress is undeniable. Aggregate private sector emissions in Europe have fallen by an impressive 28% since 2019, and billions have been invested in clean technology. On the other hand, a 2023 report from the European Environment Agency warned that without stronger action, the EU was on track to miss 20 of its 28 key environmental targets for 2030. This implementation gap is caused by a range of issues, from policy incoherence, where different EU rules conflict with each other, to the immense burden of new reporting requirements placed on both governments and businesses. The political winds have also shifted. Following the European elections in June 2024, a new narrative began to take hold. Faced with economic anxieties and the lingering impact of the farmers' protests, the political focus pivoted towards industrial competitiveness and economic security. Ursula von der Leyen herself began to rebrand the initiative, speaking more of a clean industrial deal. This shift in language raised concerns among environmental groups that the ecological ambitions of the Green Deal might be diluted in favor of short-term economic interests, prioritizing industry over nature. This recalibration highlights the fragile nature of the political consensus that underpins the Green Deal. While the core 2050 goal remains intact, the path to get there is subject to constant negotiation and political pressure. The challenge moving forward is to maintain momentum without losing public support, to drive industrial transformation without sacrificing environmental integrity, and to close the gap between ambitious targets and on-the-ground reality. The hard truth is that the most difficult part of the journey, turning grand vision into universal practice, is still ahead. The work is far from over. In the final analysis, the European Green Deal stands as the defining legacy of Ursula von der Leyen's presidency and a powerful lesson in leadership for the world. It is a testament to the idea that in times of profound crisis, bold and forward-looking action is not only possible, but essential. She took the abstract threat of climate change and translated it into a concrete, continent-wide mission, giving shape and direction to the hopes of millions. By framing it as a growth strategy, she built a coalition that spanned the political spectrum, uniting environmentalists and industrialists under a common banner of progress and prosperity. Her leadership has been a masterclass in resilience. When faced with a global pandemic that threatened to derail her entire agenda, she doubled down, weaving the green transition into the very fabric of Europe's economic recovery. When confronted with protests and political backlash, she listened, adapted, and navigated the turbulent waters without losing sight of the ultimate destination. Her journey with the Green Deal embodies her own words, that Europe is forged not in times of comfort, but in moments of crisis, through courage and a profound belief in the power of working together. This is a message of hope that resonates far beyond Europe's borders. The Green Deal has firmly positioned the European Union as the global standard-bearer for climate action. It has shown the world that it is possible for a major economic bloc to chart a course towards a decarbonized future, creating a ripple effect across the globe. By setting high standards and implementing policies like the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, Europe is not just cleaning up its own house, it is encouraging its trading partners to raise their own ambitions. It is a form of climate diplomacy that leads by example, proving that a sustainable future is not a utopian dream, but an achievable reality. The story of the European Green Deal is ultimately a story about us. It is about our collective ability to face the greatest challenge of our time with courage, ingenuity, and a spirit of cooperation. It shows that leadership is not about having all the answers, but about setting a clear direction and inspiring others to join the journey. Ursula von der Leyen has provided a blueprint, a North Star for a world in desperate need of one. Her legacy is not just a set of policies, but a powerful reminder that when we dare to envision a better future and work together to build it, we can achieve what once seemed impossible.